You are now locked in to Take a Knee Sports Podcast.
Imagine Saturday mornings at the barbershop. The conversations that are had probably would leave memories in your head for the rest of your life. Here on Takeakneesports Podcast, I have a candid, open, barbershop style discussion. Just, discussing current and past events in the sports world, football, boxing, and basketball, sports that I love. Mostly facts, some facts, I would say, a lot of opinion, but always keeping it real. Yeah. So let's kind of get right into it today. I normally like to start off my podcast with a lot of energy, a lot of positive energy, but for some odd reason, me recording this episode this week, I was in a kind of somber mood and I kind of didn't want to record this week and I didn't want to put out anything, but I felt as though that I need to speak out and use this small platform. Even though it is a small platform, I need to use this platform to my advantage to speak out to the people and to bring awareness, of course, to the atrocities that are going on in our country right now. And especially as a black man in this country and being through some of the things that are going on right now, I can totally understand. I can empathize with those people and those families that are suffering because of somebody who was placed in charge and given a badge and a gun and told to police areas in which they know nothing about. So, like I said, let's kind of get straight into it. There's been several negative images posted this week, of course, of the Jake Blake story. Cop shooting a man 7 times in his back. And the video shows to me, I watched the video a couple of times, and it shows to me that it doesn't seem like your life was threatened at all. It's just tough to see that somebody, because they have a badge, feel like that they're above the law and go outside of protocol to do something that's not even necessary. So the situation with Jacob, I feel like, yes, you came to the house for what may seem to have been an altercation. But when you realize that this gentleman wasn't involved in an altercation, what made you want to pull out your gun? And then I think about, okay, it didn't look like he had any weapons in his hand as he was walking towards the car. He had his back to you. So why was it that your first instinct as an officer was to pull a gun? Like, you have a taser, you have a baton. Do they not teach you takedown techniques in officer training to be able to subdue somebody that you feel as though is resisting arrest? Are these not some of the things that you learn? I don't know. I think they would. I believe I've spoken to officers before and they've told me that they go through training just as well. So when you take matters into your own hands as a police officer, it makes you look bad. And I know that there's a lot of policemen that are out there that do their job on a regular basis. But at the same time, this code of blue that you guys have, if you're not pointing out the people who are doing the wrongdoings, you're going to fall right into that stereotype just like everybody else. It's just like in the black community, we have several stereotypes that people believe that are true, that in some cases make white people feel nervous or unsettled around us. And it's because of those stereotypes. It's not because of the fact that everybody who's black is doing it, but because of the fact that they may have had an experience with one black person. They feel like we're all the same. And that's the same thing when it pertains to cops. My friend, if you're not stepping out and saying, okay, this is not how we roll, this is not what we do, and you have several instances where it continues to happen and nobody's taking any type of responsibility for these happenings, then yes, that you're living up to that stereotype. You're going to be looked at in a certain manner, regardless of if you're a good cop or you're a bad cop. Everything begins to blend at that point, because at that point, you're being an accomplice to what is going on. You can't stand there and allow your quote unquote brother in arms kneel on a man's neck until he dies, or you pull a gun out on somebody and shoot them because of the fact that they're walking towards their car. Now his children are scarred for life. He had kids in the car and his kids seen that. They will visually be scarred for the rest of their life. But then I hear people opposed to it. Oh, he should have been listening to the cop and this and this and that. My friend, if you know your rights, even if the cop did show up to the event to handle whatever situation he was called upon, I have rights as a citizen. And my first right is not to be shot by the police person that is coming to protect and serve my community that I live in, that I pay taxes in. That's not going to happen, my friend. That's number one. Number two, if I wasn't involved in something, I have the right to walk away. If I'm not being detained or if I'm not being arrested, I have the right to walk away. And as an officer, you can't say that I'm resisting arrest if there's no charges being pressed. You know what I mean? I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but if you're not arresting me or detaining me, I don't have to give you any information. I don't have to say anything to you. I don't have to respond to any questions that you're giving me. I can definitely plead the fifth and remain silent. And I can, if I'm not being detained, I can lawfully walk away from what you're telling me. I don't have to stand there and listen to what you're telling me. And then I sit here and I read ignorant people's comments on Instagram and Twitter talking about, oh, if you don't resist, you won't die or something like that. I'm just like, you would never, and this was coming from, I believe, a Caucasian guy. And it's just like, you would never understand. Like, you talk about not resist. He wasn't resisting. Resisting arrest, literally, you're being detained, you're being arrested, and you are pulling away, or you're walking away from the officer in this particular case. In this case, he wasn't being arrested. So how am I resisting arrest if I'm not being arrested? You put those two together and you let me know when you come up with a conclusion on that one. I don't have to, like I said, if an officer is walking up to me right now on the street and he asks for my ID, I can say no. Because you don't have any probable cause. I'm not being charged with anything. I'm not being arrested. So no, I don't have to give you my ID. I don't have to give you any information I don't want to give you. And then I just continue to watch different videos. Like yesterday, I watched a video where a guy walks into a store, Dollar General or whatever it may be, walks into the store, has a bag in his hand, and he's already past the counter where I guess they ask you to reserve your bag at the front. He already walks past it. He's already at the cooler where he was looking to purchase a orange juice at. And the person at the register yells at him and tells him to get back from over there. You need to leave your bag up front. And he's like, well, I'm already at the cooler. Why do I need to, leave my bag? I'll just buy the juice and I'll just leave. So the person continues to yell at them and tell them that they need to leave and get out. And he's like, no. And then he calls the police on the guy. And at that point, the guy's like, okay, I'm not leaving. He's telling him to leave and leave and leave. And he's like, no, I'm not leaving. You already called the police. You called the police over some juice. And then the cashier goes to say that he's going to mace him. And the guy's like, well, what are you macing me for? You already called the police. I'm just standing here. I'm telling you to get out and this and this and that. No, this is a public place of business and I don't have to get out because I didn't do anything wrong. But he did remind him, like, if you mace me, I'm going to self-defend myself and I'm going to whoop your ass. And then once the police get there, I'm like, okay, maybe police get there, maybe they can resolve this. But then the officer then goes inside, pulls the black person outside, tells him to come outside, goes back inside. And I don't know what was told. Now, mind you, the gentleman who had walked into the store was recording the whole time. This whole conversation that he was having with the cashier, he was recording the whole time. So the cashier is telling him he's going to mace him, this and that. No crazy words are coming out of this black man's mouth. But the cashier, who was white, standing there and saying, oh, you need to get the hell out. You need to leave your bag at the front. Okay, so at this point, like I said, I'm already at the front. You can just ring me out and I can leave and this whole situation would have been over. Like, you see, I'm not stealing anything. You see, there's nothing in my bag. I can literally buy what I came to buy and leave. So anyway, back to the officer going back inside and listen to whatever story the guy inside was telling him. He comes back outside and he's like, oh, I need your information. And the gentleman politely declines. I'm not giving you my information. He's like, yeah, because the people inside want to press charges on trespassing. And he's like, no, I'm not giving my information. And if I am being charged with trespassing, I want to, get his information, the guy inside, and charge him with something as well, because he has harassed me. Instead, he was going to mace me with mace. So the officer then was like, oh, well, I don't know. He goes back inside and he comes back outside. Oh, if we catch you out here, this and this and that. Well, sir, I don't have to give you my information and you're not going to charge me with something that never transpired. I'm not trespassing anywhere because this is a public place of business and I walked in here to make a purchase So how am I trespassing? So because the officer knew that he was in the wrong, long story short, he didn't end up giving him a ticket, but then he basically told the gentleman if he ever sees him around here, and the guy was from California, he was just visiting. If he ever sees him around here, he's going to be arrested for trespassing anywhere on that property, at that store, at any of the stores in that shopping center, he was going to be arrested. And then the second officer who pulled up with the senior officer had his phone out taking pictures of the gentleman as if they were going to be searching for him every day to make sure he doesn't come back to this shopping center. It's like, who do you think you are? And I wish you guys could have seen the demeanor in which these officers were giving off. It was just like, who do you think you are? How do you feel like you have the power to tell somebody that they can't come and make a purchase? Yes, I understand that there are protocols that you have to follow when entering certain stores and so forth. But if I'm not from that neighborhood, yeah, I may see signs on the window, but I'm probably not going to pay attention to those signs. And I walked in as a regular person knowing that I'm not doing anything that's against the law. So I'm going to just walk into a store as if I would regularly walk into the store. And then by the time you yell at me, I'm already at the cooler where I'm looking to purchase the drink at. So like, what is the point of me walking all the way back up to the front to give you a bag, to walk all the way back to the refrigerator in which I was at to buy this drink, to come back to purchase the drink? It doesn't make any sense. You stereotyped me. You looked at me and was like, because he looks a certain way, I never seen him around here, he must be stealing. No. But I understand, like, yes, from the cashier's perspective, okay, we do have store policies. You can't have a bag in the store, walking around the store, because of course there may be some thievery that's going on in this area, but don't call the cops. How about you try to enforce the rule and let the guy know, like, okay, sir, you can't have this bag in here, instead of yelling at him from across the store, telling him that he can't have a bag in the store. I'm just happy that nothing transpired out of that. Like the cops didn't go crazy and try to shoot him or arrest him or anything of that sort. But the officer knew they were in the wrong. And I've been in situations like that myself, where officers have pulled me over or stopped me somewhere thinking that, you know, okay, this may be my pop right here. This may be my big arrest that allows me to get a promotion or whatever they feel like in their mind is going to transpire at that time. And from there, they end up leaving and not giving any tickets or anything like that. They just kind of give you a warning and let you go because they know they lost that battle. Like, I've had that happen to me multiple times. I remember one time specifically, I was in a car with my friend. We were just leaving out of a store. And the store that we went to, people frequent outside all the time, right? So as we're leaving, we talk to the people that's standing outside because we knew them. Oh, yeah, da. So the cop pulls up because I guess somebody had called and said that there were people standing outside the store, of course, loitering, da. The cop pulls up and he happens to park behind my car. So as I said, I spoke to the people in which were standing outside. I get in my car. And then the cop is like, no, you can't leave, this and that. I'm like, no, I'm leaving. Like, this is my car. I just came out of the store. I'm leaving. So the cop is like, oh, I need your ID, this and that. I'm like, I'm not giving you my ID, sir. I'm definitely not giving you my ID. I get in my car. Friends of mine, we also get in my car as well. And then the officer is like, basically, no, you're not leaving. And he gets in his car and he nudges up, right? He nudges up and gets a little bit closer to me. I see it as I'm sitting in my car. And I'm like, what the hell is he doing? So anyway, like I said, the cop then comes back up to my window and he's like, well, you were doing this and this and that. I'm like, sir, I wasn't involved in anything you're talking about over here. I just came out the store. I spoke to some people that I know and I'm keeping it moving. So anyway, he's like, oh, well, you have a nice day then. Well, you know, next time don't be just standing out here. I'm like, I wasn't standing out here. So anyway, as I'm leaving, I back up. And of course, he pulled up so tight on my rear that it made it difficult for me to exit out of this parallel park that I was in. And when I backed up, which was very slowly, I bumped his car. I bumped the officer's car. And then at that point, now he got real excited. At that point, he really, oh yeah, oh, you just hit my car. I'm like, sir, I know I was watching you. I seen you creep up closer to my car because you weren't parked this close to me when I first came outside and I first got into my car. I know where your car was. You creeped up to me so that when I do back up, I back up into your car. Oh, and now you definitely have a reason to give me a ticket. Some cops, for some odd reason, I don't know what it is, man. I don't know if it's the power that they feel when they become an officer and they get that badge, or they're ex-military people who had tour somewhere and they're used to, the violence and things of that sort, and they want to bring that over to the officer world, but it's not the same. They want action. It's some people who are just like thrill junkies, and they literally become a cop because they want the action. Like they want to be involved in stuff that happens like that. So when that happened, like I said, when I backed up into him, he jumps out the car. Oh, sir, you back to my car, this and this and that. I'm like, I will take pictures. Sir, I know how close you were to me, and you're not going to do this to me today. This is not going to happen, my friend. This is definitely not going to happen. I know my rights. I know where you were. I'm very conscious of where we are right now. I understand what you're talking about, but I also understand what you're trying to do right here, officer, and you're not going to bait me into getting outside of this pocket, my friend. You're definitely trying to entrap me into something that I'm not going to fall into. And long story short, I ended up not getting a ticket because he knew what the hell he was trying to do. He was trying to entice me into provoking him to do something crazy. And what's so funny about that is Dick Gregory said it the best. He said that this revolution, people are going to see this. Like, people are going to now realize that when a black man says that he was harassed by a policeman, he's really being harassed by a policeman. This is not our imagination. Like, we don't just come out of the blue and say, yeah, this police officer, he tried to, do this and do that, and I was just walking down the street. Because that's what some white people in their head think, that when black people say, oh, I was just walking down the street and officer just pulled me over for no reason. Oh, no, there had to be a reason why he was pulling you over. You probably were speeding, or you were doing, like, no. Just like how you can walk down the street and not be doing anything, I can be walking down the street as a black man as well. Black man, female, I can be walking down the street as well and not doing anything. And I can have a cop literally stop me, ask me for my license, and ask me, what the hell am I doing around here? Like, if you can't fathom how crazy that is, something is wrong with you. Something is truly wrong with you. If you think that it's okay as an officer to pull somebody over or stop somebody maybe going to work or walking down the street and harass them, which that literally is, harass them because of the fact that you suspect that they're doing something just because you're walking down the street. There's videos of people on their lawn. It was another black guy in a video. He's walking from his backyard to his front yard. It's a really nice neighborhood, nice house. He's walking from the side of his house to the front of his house because of the fact that he just had somebody mow his lawn, right? Just had somebody mow his lawn, and a cop rides by and he sees the black guy. Well, actually, he's seen the guy mowing the lawn, and then he's seen the black guy walking from the side of the house to the front of the house. And he comes over to the black guy like, yeah, I need to see your ID. For what? The guy's like, for what? And he's like, oh, I seen you walking on this property. Like, I never seen you over here before. Like, I'm just trying to make sure that you live here. He's like, no, this is my house. Like, I'm not giving you any ID. This is my house. And the officer calls back up and tries to make a scene. And the guy's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I don't have to show you anything, sir. Like, how do you walk over here? You don't see a crime being committed, but you automatically think that I don't stay here because I'm black. Like, this happens all the time. And that's probably one of the reasons why I created this podcast, and I called it Take a Knee Sports Podcast, is because I was with Kaepernick. When Kaepernick took that knee back in 2015, I believe it was, either 2015 or 2016, I knew what he was standing for. He took a knee to stand for the atrocities that occur on a daily basis. Things like this happen every day, and people just mull over it. White people just mull over it because of the fact that it doesn't affect them. It doesn't happen to them. I've talked to white people and friends of mine that this has never occurred to them, and they're oblivious to this ever happening because of the fact that they're in that white privilege that they don't even necessarily want. But at the same time, it is real. White privilege is real. And the fear that has been created by the media and propaganda has created these stereotypes that white people really feel are true. They really feel like all black people are just, murderous, black on black killing, thugs, literally. Because you've had the president of the United States tell one of the greatest basketball players and one of the greatest humanitarians in LeBron James, basically call him the N-word without saying the N-word. Like, he's literally disrespected LeBron James as if LeBron James hasn't lived probably one of the cleanest lives ever. Like, this man is damn near perfect. Even Kobe Bryant had a blemish on his, but LeBron has never. He's been in the league for almost 20 years, has never had any type of accusations about rape, has a beautiful family, kids, has created schools, given back, made promises that he's kept. You know what I mean? Like, this is a good man. And you're telling me to shut up and dribble? Like, how does that come from the highest office in the country? Like, how do you have a president who can just tweet and talk about that type of stuff? And that just brings me to the point where I'm not sure if everybody's registered to vote, but you need to be registered to vote. And it doesn't matter if you're voting one way or another. If you're voting Democrat or Republic, you need to vote. Voting is huge. And this is going to be one of the biggest, most pivotal elections that we have had in a long time. This is probably more pivotal than when Obama became president in 2008, because we got some problems here in America, man. And when I look at the candidates that we have, I've even told my mom, I'm like, I don't know, Ma. I really don't know. I myself am probably going to write somebody in, because I'm looking at the candidates and have your current president, number 45, on one side, and I can't get with him, man. I understand his perspective, like, as a businessman. Okay, great. You're doing things to keep the stock market afloat and the economy afloat, right? Some black people try to say that, he's doing this and this and that for the black community. I can agree to disagree. I'm not going to go too further into that. Of course, if somebody wants to have that conversation with me, I'll definitely have that conversation. But I can agree to disagree in that, because, say, for instance, for example, the opportunity zones that supposedly he created, these opportunity zones are really for just big businesses to be able to exploit and bring in businesses into these small towns because of some of the tax breaks that they may get. But that's neither here nor there. So with 45, like I said, yes, from a business perspective, okay, I can understand that. But then this country is not a business. Like, it's not just numbers. It's actual people that you have to accommodate for. And it's not just one type of person in this country. So for you to make the statements that you make without any disregard to how people feel is disrespectful, because regardless of what side you're on of the fence, whether that be Republican or Democrat, at the end of the day, the president is supposed to be bipartisan. He's supposed to be for the country, not for a small minority of the country, not for the 1%, but for the whole 100% of the country. So some of the divisive things that he has said is very disheartening. And I can't get behind that. And I can't support somebody who doesn't have my family and my community in his best interest. Now, on the other side of the fence, you have Vice President number 44 and Miss Harris. Now, on that side, okay, yes, Joe Biden, you were the vice president when Barack Obama, and there were some good things that transpired while you were in office. But at the same time, there's some things that you have said, my friend, that I just can't rock with. And I feel like also at this point, Joe Biden, you're a little too old. Crazy thing about it, crazy story is, when I crossed in my fraternity back in 2007, I actually met Joe Biden when he was still, I believe, what was he, the governor or senator of Delaware at the time. And he was a very sharp man, nice guy, very witty and understood some of the needs of the black community. But now the guy that I listen to now is not the same guy. He has aged a lot. And some of the things that he says, I'm just like, you can't be on your rocker. Like, something is going on. You're not quite all there. And to be backed by Miss Harris, I feel that was just a political move to gain certain votes, right? Of course, Biden is another white male, just like number 45. So it's just like, you had to gain some of the black vote, because he felt like, and this is also his own words, he felt like that if you're not black and if you don't vote for me, then you're not black. Like, what? That don't even make no sense, Biden. Are you kidding me? Are you crazy? Like, that's when I think back to people like Candace Owens, right? Like, I feel like as a black person, yes, you don't necessarily have to be Democrat. You don't have to be a Republican. You can be independent. You can be whatever you want to be. Now, to that aspect, I do understand what Candace Owens says when she says, about the free thinking and things of that sort. But then I question Candace Owens because I'm like, okay, you say that you're independent, but you're voting or you're a supporter of Trump. Like, how can you be one and the same? Like, how does that coincide? The same thing like with Kanye. Like, how do you say you're a free thinker and we need to get out of this slave mentality and all this stuff like that, but you support Trump? It just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, I digress. Like, yes, I do believe that we as black people, we don't need to blindly vote Democratic because of the fact that, historically that's the way we've been leaning, and that's the party in which we feel like has supported black people throughout these years and, has produced the Clintons and all those things like that. But it's just like, how about instead of voting Democrat or Republican, how about you just vote for the person that you feel is going to have your best interests to be able to build the America and build the community in which you want to build, and stop allowing rhetoric to dictate how you vote. Stop letting the divisive words that they say blind you to what they're really saying. And that's what really pisses me off about people these days. Like, because of social media, people no longer try to research. People no longer try to fact check. They just go off of the bullshit and the rhetoric in which people say. Like, read between the lines. I was watching a speech with Trump at the little rally that he had, and I'm listening to the things that he's saying, and people are hollering, and I'm like, he hasn't said anything yet. He hasn't said anything that has any value or any type of, or shows any type of progression of the direction in which he's trying to go. And that's what normally has really upset me about the President 45, right? You say that you're for the people, right? You say that, okay, it's time for all of the quote unquote politics, and you're doing things different than how things were done in the past, but you continue to make divisive statements and then try to say that you're for the people. Like, how do you make divisive statements? Don't take a stand and say that that's not cool. When you see people of white or Caucasian descent, when you see them out here hanging people and shooting people of color because of some of the words that you've incited in them, like you've incited this fear once again that black people are going to do this and this and that, or take over their country, or we're going to be more superior than the white people. They get excited by the words in which come out of your mouth and the things that you say on your Twitter and out loud, and then you don't denounce the fact or try to detach yourself from that group. So of course people are gonna, associate you by cause. Like they're gonna continue to attach you with that person until you denounce the fact that you are not with that crowd. And for you to not do that, that really upsets me, because it's just like, bro, you expect people to not believe that you're not racist, but you're not denouncing the fact that you're attached with people who are in fact racist. And my mama always taught me that if it walks like a duck, looks like a duck, it's a fucking duck. So you're not going to sit here and tell me that you're not racist, but you continue to do racist shit. Like that just it don't work like that. Like, it's just like telling me I play basketball all the time, but I'm not a basketball player. It doesn't fucking work like that, my friend. And that's one of the biggest things that really, I guess, pushes me away from his ideologies. It's just like, I'm not going to sit here and, make statements about people and not expect them to react. And that just brings me to my next point, and it makes me so proud. So I'm proud of the fact that these athletes are finally, using their platform to show that if we stand together, we can do anything, to be honest with you. We have so much power in the black community. It's crazy. We have so much untapped potential in the black community to be such a strong people, but we continue to degrade ourselves and continue to let other people perpetuate our culture. And when you do that and you don't have a sense of self, you can't necessarily be who you're supposed to be. there are a lot of communities, especially like the Asian community, Jewish community, and so forth. They back their own people, and they don't fight amongst themselves. They don't kill each other. And they keep their dollar in that community. If we were to band together as Black people, we would probably be the strongest community ever. And that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid because they know the strength we can be as Black people. They know the strength. They know that we as Black people rule this world. Like, we are the creators, and they know that. And that's what they're afraid of. That's the reason why we have these police shootings, because these white men have a sense of inferiority in their system, that subconsciously they believe that we're going to take over, or either we're going to take over or we're going to do to them what was done to us. And that is the fear that subconsciously is in probably a lot of white people's mind, because there's no reason why, regardless of what size, it's just like, okay, if a white person was to walk past a big, tall white guy, another big, tall white guy, why would he not be afraid? But I'm sure if the same tall Black guy walked past him, you would probably cross the street, depending on where you are. And why is it like that? Why do you have that fear? And I can understand maybe you've had an encounter with somebody and something has happened that may put a slight fear in your head. But then if you really think about it logically and you look at that person is not the same person that did that harm to you. So you shouldn't have that fear. And also, you shouldn't fear as a cop. If you have that fear, then you shouldn't be a cop, because that is going to cause you to make irrational decisions. And that's not what we need police to do. We need police to make concise, rational decisions and be able to come to conclusions to be able to solve problems. That's what we need you to do. And I know I've been rambling on a lot in this episode, but I just feel like we as a country need to get our shit together. Like, if you're telling me that you're here for the betterment of everybody in this country, as a white person, you shouldn't be saying all lives matter when somebody says Black lives matter. Yes, we understand that all lives matter, but how can all lives matter when there's not care for the Black life? Like, when people don't give a fuck and police officers are just shooting us at random because they want to, that means that all lives don't matter. So for you to combat Black lives matter with all lives matter is basically a redundant statement, because all lives can't matter if Black lives are not included in all lives. So when you're saying all lives matter, do you mean just all white lives matter? Is that what you fucking mean? You can't make that statement in a rebuttal to Black lives matter if Black lives are not included in that all lives matter statement and in what you just made. So stop with the rhetoric, like, stop with the bullshit. If you really care about Black people and you really care about everybody in this country and you care about everybody being included in everything, then yes, you need to be with the Black Lives Matter movement as well, because we need to bring our humanization of Black people to the forefront. And until we do that, we're going to continue to scream that down your streets, and you're going to continue to have protests daily until you realize or start to recognize and take responsibility of the atrocities that have occurred in this country. And until that time, we're going to be stuck in a rabbit hole until we actually decide that we want to sit down and have the discussions that are necessary, the tough discussions that are necessary in order to make a resolution. And until that time, we're going to continue to fight, because Black people not having that shit no more, bro. Like, all the Jim Crow and civil rights things that were going on back before some of these young people time, like, it's not going to happen with these young kids. These young kids are not fucking around. And the people that are a part of this movement will not back down. And they're going to continue to fight until they feel like, and we feel like, we have gotten what we are due. And we're not even talking reparations yet. We're just talking about the humanizing of the Black person in America, period. So like I said, I honestly didn't really want to do this podcast this week, but I had to speak something. I had to say something about what's going on, because it's crazy. And hopefully, sports can get back to some regular, because I applaud the NBA. I applaud the soccer league, MLS. I applaud the MLB for making that stand, because as I stated earlier, the platform in which they have reaches millions of people. And if they're standing with the right cause, which Black Lives Matter is the right cause to stand behind, then they're doing justice. They are doing justice. And I stand behind all of the athletes. Being a former athlete myself, I stand behind all the athletes standing up and not participating in anything that's going to continue to perpetuate this cycle. So that's really all I have for this week. Like I told you guys at the beginning of the show, this is my very first time recording a podcast. So I want to get better. I want to improve. So I need to hear feedback. Let me know. Write in the comments. You can also find me on Instagram, Twitter. My email address is takeakneespodcast@gmail.com. Also, you can find me on Instagram at Takeakneesportspodcast, as well as the same name on Twitter. I want to hear from you guys. I want to get better so I can improve and give you the best content. And I'll be posting content on a weekly basis every Thursday. Until next time, stay locked in.